Dr. Wallace, welcome. Welcome in.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Good. I'm over here in Montana and it looks like we're going to get snow again today.
Oh my goodness, Montana.
Yeah.
What brings you all the way from Montana to hang with us today?
I worked I was my schools were one of the early adopters of Parsec when I was a school administrator in California. I see
Okay.
Connecting Shawnee. Hi, Shawnee, and Connecting Waters. So I used to be with IEM schools back
Oh,
when
yeah.
Parsec was just getting started, and then I moved out of state, and now I'm part of Mr. D's math.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Very,
We used to be part of IEM schools as well, but I don't think our paths crossed.
Yeah, your name rings a bell. I was there 2009 to 2022, so I was there a pretty good
Okay.
chunk. So I worked mostly with Sherry when she was there.
Oh, Sherry Nelson?
Yep.
Oh, well, then our paths did cross. We left, I
Okay.
think we must have left in 2010.
Yep.
Very good.
awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. It's great to be here with you. And you work with Mr. D now. That's like an exclusive thing.
No, I work full time for the state of Montana, the Department of Education.
Oh, great.
But in the evenings, I work part time with Mr. D, sort of helping to, because Mr. D is na international, really, but as a national curriculum provider.
Yeah,
But he brought me on to really help and support the charter schools in California because that sort of was my world for so many years.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do a fair amount of work with Mr. D, running some data analysis for him on the programs that he's offering, and correlating that to state test improvement and local assessment improvements. And so we really like what he's doing over there, him and Melanie at Right at Home.
Yep. They usually pass that information on to me, and then uh, you guys evaluate and review it. I sort of help them understand it if they don't, and then I use it in our publications or promoting what we do to schools. So it's a
Awesome.
good partnership.
Yeah, well, my email is just my first name at Parsec Education. So if you ever need anything or have questions as you're looking at what we've produced, or there's something that you would like added, just let me know. Be
Great.
great.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah, of course. Well, we had 23 people sign up, but it is the heaviest week of spring break as far as I'm aware, because it is the week leading up to Easter. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And we got an audience of one today, but this will go out to everyone who was there. So let's get introductions underway. I'm going to share my screen. Everyone give me an amen if you can see when I shared, um, because I don't always know. Let me make sure I have the right uh, slideshow up. That would be helpful. And let's go here. Can everyone see my screen? And all right, we got a yes and amen from Shoni. And we are ready to go. So guys, welcome. We are here with, it's me, Ryan. I've been here a lot. If you've been to one of our webinars before, there's like a 20% chance that you've seen me on one. We also have Shoni Nelson. Shoni, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
So I'll start by saying my name's Shoni Johnson. I think you said Shoni Nelson, but we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for having me. I'm Shoni Johnson. I'm the Curriculum and Accountability Director with Connecting Waters Charter Schools. I've been with Connecting Waters for almost 20 years. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I've presented a couple times with Ryan, and as I've said many times, I just kind of ride on his coattails because he's amazing and he does all the heavy lifting. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we a lot of what we learn is from the work that folks like Shoni are doing on the ground level. We have people who've been in education in various levels, but it's really the work that's happening in the schools every day as things shift. And really, it's weird because school shifts and stays the same all at the same time. And so we're learning alongside of our partners. So grateful to have you here with us, Shoni. We don't have like a ton of things that we try to accomplish with these webinars, because we figure if we keep it simple, want to give you at least one meaningful thing to walk away from. But we're going to learn today to ask the right kinds of questions, or what kind of questions to ask, smart ways to surface honest feedback, how to move from listening to action, and quick examples that you can actually use. And I just dropped my ring because I was playing with it. So we're going to go through all this today. My main goal for all of these sessions that we're in is just you have one meaningful thing to take away. Life is a fire hose. You have things coming at you constantly. So one meaningful thing to take away and shift the way that you're doing something you're currently doing. I don't want to add on. I want to help refine. So we're going to start with a story. It's a little video. And it's a video, it's a snippet from our summit. We had a student panel, and a student was talking about some issues that they were having on campus. The African-American students were experiencing a particular issue, and a change that began to happen through their school leaders, their system leaders, engaging with them and asking, what can we do? How can we help? So I'm going to play this, and we'll reflect on it after we're done.
Starting my freshman year of high school, we had our president, Niaja Terry. We started restorative circles because there had been multiple altercation with teachers on campus using the N-word and invalidating our feelings when we brought it up to admin and stuff like that. And so we brought it up to our principal, Mr. Holterman, and we brought it to my dad, who also works at the school, Thomas Page, and Shannon Monroe. And they decided that a restorative circle would be very important to start educating the teachers on campus on how they should properly treat Black students on campus.
So very simple. But when you hear a story about students having experiences with like racial slurs on campus, and even teachers, the authorities around them ignoring these things happening, what are your reactions to that when you hear that coming from a student? And Shoni, you can share, and Martha and Dr. Wallace, you guys are all open to share. You can put it in the chat, or you can say out loud, and then we'll give it some space.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in and just say, I mean, it always shocks me. I'm always like, what year are we in? Why can't we get past this? So it's always so shocking to me. But I think more impactful when I hear the student's voice about that is that the administration, the people that are supposed to be protecting them, weren't initially listening to them. So it was just shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that, like, being just transparent, vulnerable, being in those situations myself where I've heard stuff, I have felt that I don't have a say, or I don't even know how to engage with that conversation. And of course, gotten better through the conversations I've had with Babatunde and other leaders over the years. But sometimes you just don't even know how to engage with that when you hear it. So you heard in the story that when they listened and they heard what was going on, which is key, they listened and they responded, by making actual change. They said, let's create a space to educate teachers on what's going on, to hear the students and to learn how to respond when something like this happens. And I think that's powerful when you have the top level like authority in a school system support that kind of work, because it lets you know, as a teacher, someone who's now asked to engage in something difficult, that you have like the seal of approval from the people. People have your back when you go in and you try to advocate on behalf of students. I saw something in the chat. It also shows the power of at least one adult willing to listen and advocate. 100%, Dr. Wallace. It's amazing how many problems, I should say, how many situations go unresolved because we're so busy doing the day-to-day. But when you take the time and create the space to listen, which, by the way, Madera Unified has done an excellent job taking the space to listen, just as a culture, and they've made massive improvement. We'll look at some data in this next slide. This is the suspension rates for African-American students over time at Madera Unified. Now, Madera Unified has had 2 phases of this work. And those phases were during the pandemic and in 2022-23. And so we see some interesting things begin to happen. So during the pandemic, they noticed that their students were, their African-American students were disproportionately suspended over all their students. And they took a lot of time to invest. They invested in empathy interviews. They invested in creating programs, but they listened to their students. And the African-American students, the overall theme of their qualitative input, their stories that they were telling about their time at Madera Unified was, there's just no place for us here. There's nothing for us. And so you had this whole group of students who were part of the life of Madera that felt like they were outsiders in their own education. And Madera moved on that. Todd Lyle is an incredibly empathetic and powerful leader in this way. He listens and he cares and he changes things. And they ended up creating this program called the Student Champion. I don't know the rest of the title, but it's a training for teachers. And what they saw is as the trainings took place and teachers were part of learning what it means to, or how to step in when you see racial slurs being used, how to step in when you see students being belittled, how to step in when another teacher shows apathy towards a situation. So as they began to teach really these soft skills, these aren't hard skill type things that we usually think about, but they began to teach these soft skills, they saw major improvement. And the first major improvement was this shift in suspension, caused this shift in suspension for African-American students from 18.1% to 10.9%. It was a major victory for them. Now it's still above the state average. State average is like 8.6% in 2024-25. So there's still room to improve and to move ahead. The other round of this work happened in 22-23, where those characteristics or the data began to show again that they had this disproportionately, like they was moving the wrong direction, disproportionate in suspensions for African-American students and Hispanic students too. And what they did is they re-engaged. You'll see that there's this conversation, the video that we just watched is from this era of work in 22-23, leading into 23-24, where again, there was this sort of apathy that existed from either not knowing how or doing the ostrich thing where you stick your head in the sand and don't see it. And people weren't engaging in those student advocate roles that Madera had been so intentional about. And one of the things that we did with Parsec is we actually released a reel, which is our feedback platform. We released a reel and we had 50% of the African-American population at Madera Unified respond within 48 hours. And we saw again that there was this theme of like, we're not being advocated for, we're not being seen, not being heard. And so they made adjustments and we're seeing the improvement. 2024 is the lowest suspension they have. And it's because teachers are advocating for them. And it's really important that we use students as a barometer of the effectiveness of the things that we intended to do. A lot of times we intend to do something, we put it into a system, and then we don't actually check its effectiveness. And so student voice is a way that we engage with that.
And Ryan, I just wanted to say, collecting this kind of data, it just highlights how systemic, these issues still are and, how much work we have to do. So, I mean, and how it's really affecting and impacting students because, we like to think that, we live in this like great, perfect world. We've come so far and we just have so much more work to do.
Yeah.
And so that student voice is just so powerful in that regards.
Yeah. And if teachers aren't advocating and someone says a word, right, or a slur or belittles someone, the person who receives that, in order to not get in trouble, has to internalize that. Like they have to just hold that. Like I can't now take that out verbally, physically, in any of these pathways in like this scenario. And we have to model the ability to step into that well as adults in the system. The adults are the leading indicators of student success. And so the more that we can train teachers to engage and advocate and create that safe space for all students, the better things are going to be. So yes, one of the things that we know in the work that we've done at Parsec and in the studies that we read is that when schools take voice seriously, students show up differently. And I got some stats for you on the next slide, but there are perspectives outside of the normal data we're looking at. You know, it could be that we look at the suspension data at Madera Unified and go, well, we just need to like shift our rigor on or what we consider an offense. And there might be something to that. But it could also be that we just need to change the way that we're interacting or treating or taking care of this group of students that's showing the results that we're seeing. There's foundational needs that need to be met in order for learning to improve, in order for outcomes to improve. So we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye out for those things. I love this. I put this slide in everything if I can. And when students have a voice, I like to remember 789, 789, 789. When students have a voice, when they're given opportunity to actually shape the way that you move on their behalf, they're more likely to be motivated to learn by 7 times. They're more likely to experience engagement in school by 8 times. And they're more likely to experience purpose, which is huge, purpose in school up to 9 times. And here's the stat that we want to make sure that we become the solution for. 61% of students believe that they have a voice upon entering middle school. In the 12th grade, by the 12th grade, that number drops to 37%. So we have basically created, whether we say it explicitly or not, a system that just says, sit down, do your work, and be quiet. And I don't think that's going to work any longer. Certainly not working if you look at the national outcomes reports. Things aren't moving in the right direction. And a sense of purpose in school would help. A sense of being able to shape their education would help. Just giving people a voice. And just a reminder of the way that the data is going to work in kind of the framework that we use most frequently at Parsec is the test scores and attendance and discipline. They tell us what's happening. They don't explain why the data looks the way it does. And without honest feedback, without honest input, we're missing a major component. All we're doing, if we don't ask, never, my phrase is this, never solve a problem for other people without asking them what the solution to the problem is. Never do it. We have examples of school systems that have failed initiatives because they brought their best thinkers together, but they didn't ask the people for whom the problem was being solved. And once they did, the problem became much more solvable. So what does this look like in action? This is why I have Shoni here. This is why she's awesome, is she's put this kind of thinking into work at Connecting Waters in a way that is really exciting. And I want to highlight this kind of work. So Shoni, I'm going to pull up the slides. You saw them. It's the slides from CCSA. I just kind of want you to talk through your process, and then I'll be your clicker. You just say next slide, and I will next slide it for you.
You got it. Yeah, so this is one example of where we just really thought, hey, let's just kind of ask the students what's going on. As Dr. Wallace said, one of the important works that schools like Connecting Waters and IEM schools do is personalized learning. And so kind of with that mindset of like, we have these educational budgets, there's no like cash value in it, but the teachers have budgets for students and they can really truly personalize the education. we kind of just had this mindset that we were servicing all students and pretty much servicing them in a way equally. It's a little bit of an oxymoron, but because they were getting a personalized education. But we kind of slowly were seeing some decline in the English learner student performance. So we had a drop in a pretty significant drop in 2023. And we really, wanted to know what was going on. We're like, we're personalizing their education. How can we have this drop? We're servicing their every need. And so we kind of started doing, collecting some map data with our ESs and really looking at, what was going on. And the mindset when we talked to the teachers was sort of a, well, these students, they have barriers, and we're like, no, it's not good enough. Like, it's not, you can't just say because they're an EL student, they're not making progress. We're seeing a drop in their performance. Something's happening here. And so we really needed to do more. So I can't remember what the next slide is, but I think if you click on the next slide, yeah, we started collecting some qualitative findings. And this is where, Parsec came in, and we just thought, let's ask the students how they're feeling. Brilliant idea. Let's see what's going on. And what we found out was it was so on the nose, and it was almost embarrassing that we missed it. But what we found out was that a lot of the students were reporting that they were using their teacher's instructional budget, that they were, they all know that they have this, they can, at request, extra tutoring, or they can request extra resources. They were using it just for, basic supplies, because many of our EL students were refugees, they were low income, they didn't even have basic supplies in the home. They didn't start with a computer. They didn't start with paper and pencils. They didn't have books even. They didn't have basic supplies. So they were trying to just get basic supplies, where their counterpart peers who had that were using their resources for extra tutoring and extra enrichment activities that were balancing out their education better. So we realized that we needed to do some shifts, that, this budget to personalize, it's that equity versus equality thing. Again, it was sort of on the nose. It seemed like we should have been able to figure that out, but it was really asking the students, like, hey, what do you think your barriers are? And it wasn't that they felt like English was their second language. It was, they needed more resources because they were starting at a lower place. So once we made some changes to our program and started funding, we started finding grants and using supplemental grant funding and other grants to start really supplementing their education. We saw a significant performance increase in our English learners because they were able to access more resources. So I think if you click on the next slide, I think there's one more. Yeah. So the very next year we saw a 23-point jump. We got on the growth data from the dashboard. We saw 23 points above typical growth for the English learners, which in comparison was amazing, and just really just solidified that we thought what we were doing was working. And we got incredible feedback from the students too. They really felt listened to. They were more motivated. They felt more well-rounded because they were able to do some enrichment activities that their counterparts were able to do. So they were happier to be in school and happier to be learning. So it was really helpful.
And Shoni, just to correct the record here, I believe these are iReady scores, and I didn't change that properly. Is that correct?
No, these are CASP scores. This is from the new growth scores from the dashboard.
Dang, that's unbelievable growth. Okay, sweet. I know that we had talked about it at one point. I thought I
think you had iReady, and I was like, oh no, that's the new dashboard scores. Yeah.
Before we send this out to everyone, I have to replace that and make sure CASP is spelled correctly. So I have some answers that Shoni actually got from her students in a next slide, but I want to hit on questions real quick. Thank you, Shoni, for sharing that, and then we'll open up for questions in a second. But real answers. So we want to start with good questions, open-ended questions. This is where our traditional method of doing feedback is falling short, and we need to create spaces. Technology is really making this possible, to ask questions that allow us to get the answers that we need. not the answers that we expect or the answers that we want. So open-ended questions are the way to do that. And here's just a few examples. What's one thing that would make you feel safer? What's one thing that would make school feel safer for you? So that's a question you can ask a student. What's something adults at your school don't understand about your experience? And we want to avoid jargon and surveys. So we want to make sure that we're asking to the right audience. What's the hardest thing about you're asking parents, what's the hardest thing about getting your student, your child to school every morning? If you're working on chronic absenteeism, identifying those barriers, it's huge. And here's some responses that Shoni, these were from you guys, correct? In your findings, I believe.
Yeah, so part of what we wanted to do was really change the mindset of the teachers and really help them understand, because they were like, we're personalized learning. What difference does it make if the student is an EL student or an EO student, an English only student? I mean, we're personalizing it. And we couldn't get the staff to really move past, because they were already in this mindset. Well, we're personalized, so we meet the students where they need to be. And so we knew that we had kind of a bigger issue. We needed to change the mindset of the teachers as well and help them understand that equality versus equity piece. So we thought, let's ask the students for some feedback, because this was really eye-opening for the teachers to see that, like, it really wasn't about that they just don't understand. That's what's holding them back. It's their language barrier. I mean, sometimes, of course, that plays into it, but some of these responses really help the teachers kind of go, oh, like, I get it. They're coming from a different place, and it's not like, just to change their mindset that, like, oh, well, they're an English learner, so their growth is going to be slower. Oftentimes we see with the English learners, their growth exceeds their English only peers. So it was part of trying to change the teacher's mindset and really listening to their students. And that's why we threw this in there.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that so often happens, and we're guilty of this as data people, is we have everything that your head needs, but we don't have anything that your heart needs. And really, if you want impact, if you can engage both of those things very well, in a meaningful way, you're going to just get more return on investment. And so this is a great way, Shoni, that you guys said, okay, we've got the data, but we need some hearts to get involved in this. And so changing hearts, changing minds is what the qualitative helps us do, because it humanizes what so often just becomes numbers and frustrating, compliance components.
Right.
These are people. And I love this question too. What accomplishment are you most proud of? And you can see being able to become independent, how I got my grades high, when I got an A this year. I'm proud of getting through obstacles, even though it takes a long time. This is cool. I think the more opportunity we give students to brag a little bit about what they're accomplishing, to own their wins, this is great. So, yeah, Shoni, do you have any insight on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we found, and this is very unscientific, but we felt like just asking some of these questions of them as part of the study sort of led them to want to even try harder as a student. It's almost like it was like this reciprocal relationship where they were like, oh, my teacher's asking what I'm proud of. My teacher's asking what my barriers are. My school is concerned about me. I want to step it up a little bit. And it seemed like they really, like, the teachers were reporting, yeah, the kids they love these surveys, and they're working harder. So yeah, like, showing them that we're listening, we care, we want to know more about them. It's not just about the schoolwork. It sort of opened that door to want them to do better.
Love that. This is something, guys, that Shoni just hit on, is a great segue. Build trust by following through. We cannot overstate this enough. I talk to school systems that do this well, and I talk to school systems who don't do this as well. One of the things that I've heard, I've asked people, so what are you doing with that feedback that you got? And they'll say, well, we're doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, who knows that that's what you're doing based on the feedback? And they'll be like, well, nobody. And we have to do a really good job. If we want to get people bought into the system, we need to do the work of crosswalking their feedback to the solution that's being put in place on their behalf. Because people won't necessarily make that connection on their own. They're working two jobs. They're neck deep in or nose deep in homework. They're thinking about their breakup or their dog being sick, or like all the things that you can think of, or college exams. So the more that we can connect what they've said to what we've done on their behalf, the follow through, the follow up, and create those feedback loops, the better off things are going to be, because they're going to begin to trust that we value their voice because they've seen that value in action. And that's what really builds things. There's some, these are some from other schools that we've worked with that I just wanted to leave in here for you guys. These are some changes, some simple changes that our partners have made based on feedback they've received using Parsec Real, open-ended feedback. And it ranges from like lunchtime to additional math support to additional facilities. These are all things that people have been able to identify as actionable items based on the quantitative data leading to the qualitative data leading to action. And so I'll leave these in here for your review as this stuff goes out at the after this webinar. But just to leave us with a question, how can you guys apply this at your school, this type of thinking? What are some of those areas where you would like to explore through the qualitative? Well, this is the question. How would you, what are some ways that you see to use qualitative data to explore the experiences of your students or the data that's related to them? Hey, Martha. Are you still there, Martha?
I am.
Would you share some of your experience around utilizing qualitative data? I know you've done a lot over there in Tennessee, and you guys are currently working with an organization over there with collecting qualitative data. What are some of the applications you've seen or you've heard from our team?
I think that much like what I put in the chat, it's the realization that we only have our own lens on other people's problems. And that if you are making decisions for people instead of with people, they're much more resistant, even if it's a good solution. So I have seen some directors of schools do some amazing things with their teachers and teacher retention. I think Knox County is a really great example of this by just saying, what works for you? What can we do that makes your life easier, and actually listening to those solutions, because they're not always challenging or expensive. Sometimes it's as simple as protecting plan time, which even as when I was in the classroom back in the day, that felt like a challenge. Limiting announcements, all those things that allow teachers to do what they want to do, which is engage with students. So making time. And Knox County has dropped their teacher retention issue to they were nearly fully staffed. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tennessee, Knox is one of our larger districts. Doesn't compare to the size of some of the California districts, but it's one of our larger districts. So they were almost at full staffing simply by asking their teachers what worked for them and doing those things, and including that in their recruiting conversations with graduates from the University of Tennessee, with people that were interviewing, with people they were recruiting. So that's one, and that's just an adult example, much less a bazillion children examples that we could probably pull out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we didn't talk about so much here is engaging with the staff, asking them. I think there's plenty of examples of we bring in a professional development vendor, and then we don't even ask if they feel equipped to implement after they're done, or what additional resources they might need, or what their plan of action is. And these are all things that the qualitative data can help us identify, because if we don't implement well, we can't expect any change, any meaningful change. So it's great. Thank you. And Julie, welcome. I saw you come in. Just so you guys know, we will be talking a lot about this kind of work at our summit that's coming up in 2026. There is an early bird sale, so it's 50% off summit tickets until May 31st. So if you'd like to join us for that, there's more information at parsecsummit.com. The link is on the page there. It'll be in this slideshow that goes out to you all. And I'm asking that if you're joining us, as Dr. Wallace, this would almost be exclusive to you here. But we have a little survey that we would like you to fill out to let us know if any more information that you would like, or any other resources, anything along those lines. You can use the QR code there, or did we put the link in the chat, Brandon?
Yes, I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, the link would be helpful in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the chat for you. You can open that up for after we're done. And thank you guys. Any questions? I know like Shoni's story and the work that they did with their English learner students is something that I feel like could be shared anywhere in the state right now. It's such a high priority everywhere you go. It doesn't matter if your English learners are Spanish speaking or Chinese speaking or Farsi speaking or Russian speaking. There is this drive in California to make sure that we're meeting the needs of English learners. So any questions that you guys might have for Shoni and the work that they're doing at Connecting Waters, this would be a space for that. All right. Well, Shoni, if any of our folks that get this afterwards would like to ask you questions on any of this, is there a way that they can contact you that's best? Because this is great work to follow up on.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to share my contact information. I'll stick it in the chat as well. But yeah, anyway, I'm happy to brainstorm and chat and learn from others as well. So feel free to contact me at any time.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here today and joining us as we explore how giving students a voice changes outcomes. And it's really cool stuff. It's happening everywhere. We will continue to quantify it and talk about it everywhere that it's happening. If you've got a story, Dr. Wallace or Julie or whomever's here, let us know. We would love to highlight the things that are happening that are even outside of Parsec's sphere, because good work is good work regardless of where it's happening. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, let us know. I'm Ryan at parseceducation.com, and we'll be sending out that information in an email.
Thank you, Ryan.